Friendships are an important part of all of our lives.
Yes, and in childhood, really, they're vital. So here to talk more about that is Dr. Laura Saunders. Thank you for being with us.
Happy Wednesday.
Hello, friends, and happy Wednesday.
Good to see you.
This gets tricky because, we all know, oh, you want your friends to be liked, your kids to be liked, and you want them to have good friends, and then you watch them have conflict. And I think as parents, you don't know what to do, and you don't know what to do to help them.
Yes, and this, I think, was another issue that really got muddled during COVID, because if you think about it, you had to stay in your family group or a very small pod group for a long time. So especially younger kids missed a lot of those kind of developmental milestones, right? Play is what we call it in younger children. In interactive play, it starts with parallel play, then it becomes interactive. It is so unbelievably important for brain development. And as you get older, play and then friendships really teach kids very important skills about, and so the concept is called theory of mind, right? How can I mentalize what someone else might be thinking or feeling? And that's often it starts through play and then moves into friendships.
All right, you say friendship is categorized into 4 different types. Can you explain the different types?
Yeah, so, there's acquaintances, right? And you can see this in your own lives, and you can look at it in your children's lives, right? They might have some acquaintances, someone that they might play soccer with, or someone that they might have in a certain group. And then, there's a friend, right? And how people define friends is different. There's closer friends, and then there's like a best friend. And you don't have to have any number of these individuals. I always say having at least one friend is a protective factor for a lot of young people. And if you look, there are patterns with kids. So some kids do better just like they just have a group. They're not really super close to anyone, but they have a group of friends. Some kids just can only manage one friend. That's all they can really emotionally tolerate. And that friend is a close friend.
So that's okay then? Like you might be like, oh, my kid, he's not really getting involved in the group, all these group activities. And, he kind of wants to be by himself, or he just talks to this one kid. How do you know what's normal or what's okay?
So I worry if kids have really struggle in social interactions. And it's not uncommon, like when I do clinical interviews or I'm meeting new patients and clients, that I'll ask about their friendships, because it really does say a lot for a child's social emotional development. So it is something that you want to know, but you don't have to have a half dozen friends to be considered emotionally healthy. You can have 1 or 2 friends, or a friend and kind of a couple acquaintances, and that's okay because it speaks more to someone's style. And again, there are all, developmental issues. How you maintain friendships in elementary school might be different than middle and high school. Really, during adolescence, and especially older adolescents, friendships really assume a very crucial role in their emotional development, and they actually become less dependent on families and more dependent on friends.
Now, my parents actually came to me and said, we don't want you hanging around with David and Kevin. Is that a good thing to say, or is that a bad thing to say?
Can you step in and say you're not allowed to be friends with these people?
You're not allowed to be friends with these people?
Well, I think there needs to be a good reason. And I think sometimes parents ascribe negative. They don't want to think negative traits about their child, so they believe that David and Kevin are the bad influences, when it's often an interaction. So there really needs to be a good reason. Often in those situations, I worry about the Romeo and Juliet effect. The more you tell your child not to play with or be connected to someone else, the more attractive that person is. Okay. So I think there needs to be some really good, solid reasons for why you want your child to kind of distance themselves from someone.
Now, we've talked about bullying and all that, and that's a different thing. But what about, it's so hard when you realize someone in your child's friend group is being mean. Maybe there's that New York Times best-selling book about mean girls and wannabes or something like that, that just the way groups work, that sometimes there's a mean kid and you might be friends with the parents. What do you do? Do you let your kids just work it out? When does a parent intervene if the child's dealing with meanness?
So you're right. Bullying is a separate thing. We talked about that last week. And there are always kids in any group that are unkind. They're the teasers. They're the ones that are a little bit more sarcastic. And I try and I advise the parents and families that I work with to let their kids manage it for as long as they can, because that conflict resolution and that problem solving, those are also lifelong skills. No matter where you're going to school or what job you have, you will always have people in your life that are irritable and mean and difficult, and you have to figure out ways to manage it. Now, it's okay to talk about it, like to say, well, how can you distance yourself from that person? Or how can you align yourself better with your other friend who's really more supportive to you? So you can talk about strategies, but I would hold off intervening with other parents and try to let the kids work it out.
Well, next week's session is going to be about what makes people mean. Thank you, Dr. Laura. We appreciate that.
As long as we're all kind, that's a good start.
That's a good start.
No mean people. Like,
No mean people.
It's true. There are mean people everywhere, unfortunately. Thank you, doctor. And we'll talk more about this on the Kara's Cure Show on the app. So if you want to listen to an expanded version, we're going to get deeper into therapy with Dr. Laura a little later.
All right, I might join in.
Okay.
Thanks, Doc.